Hello, thank you very much, Jörn. I think this was a very interesting last plenary, but please don't leave the room now because we are now discussing a last topic on our agenda. We are close to finalizing the session, or this 2 days, and usually we give some space for the global IGF for sort of stock taking, looking forward, what is going to be on the agenda, how are the preparations going on. And since we are discussing a lot in these days about meaningful, non-meaningful value of the IGF and of the global IGF community, we decided not to give just a keynote speech, but instead doing a little discussion. And I would to call the following people. First of all is Thomas Schneider. He is ambassador of the Swiss government and was also the host of the IGF, or the co-host, no, the host, but the co-chair of the IGF in 2017 in Geneva. His counterpart will be Günther Gradwohl. He is from the Ministry of Economics from Germany, and Germany will be the host of the IGF in 2019. Also in the room is Raúl Echeverría. He's Vice President ISOC, with some really thoughtful comments about the future of the IGF. And we have, last but not least, and I ask you to take her in the middle, Lynn Santamour. This is kind of middle. Lynn Santamour, she is the MARC chair, and we are very happy to have her here. And I would like to ask you, please pay due attention to this last session. Stop talking. If you want to talk, go out, but we would actually prefer you stay in the room. So with this, I would like to hand over to Thomas Schneider. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We are still preparing this session because we want to take all the experience into account that we witnessed, of course. What? No, no, no. Ah, Michael is missing. Yes, Michael. Where is Mr. Rotert? We need the industry. Again, the industry business is missing. Could somebody find Michael Rotert? Well, he knows what I'm going to say in the next 30 seconds, so I can maybe start until he's probably out there smoking. We have been trying to set up a few questions here that we would like to discuss with all of you. After now 11 years experience, or 11 experiences of the EuroDiG, after 12 IGFs, what can be done, what would need to be done in order to keep these processes, or make them most relevant, in order to have them most impact. And we are having this discussion since 2006, every year at the EuroDiG since 2008. So let's try and not talk about whether a panel should be bigger or not, or whether a room should be classroom seating or round, but let's go to what we hope is the core of the challenges of the multi-stakeholder dialogue model, and the fact that some people think, as the last question says, it's just a talk shop and so on and so forth. So we would like to give the floor to you and have your views first on the 4 questions. First one is about the value of a bottom-up, open and inclusive dialogue platform like EuroDiG and the IGF. Is this necessary? Do we still need it? Wouldn't it be easier just to have a top-down simple group that puts together a nice conference with nice experts and that's it? That's the first question. The second one is, we realize that there is a misbalance between participation of stakeholders. Normally, it is no problem to have enough active and vocal civil society people participating. It's more difficult to get governments participating. It's even more difficult to get business people participating. How do we manage to make these processes more attractive to businesses and governments? That's question 2. Question 3 is the eternal discussion about how much high-level participation we need. Some think that if you have too many high-level representatives, there's not enough substance. Others think if we don't have enough high-level participation, people don't take it seriously. So how do we deal with this tension? And the final one is the question about, is a dialogue, a discussion enough, or should we go closer to decision-making processes, i.e. issue recommendations or something like a so-called tangible outcome? So these are the 4 elements. Please comment on any of them. As we have very little time, I ask you to be brief, to not exceed 1 minute. I start singing a nasty song when you exceed 60 seconds, or somebody of us will start dancing on stage, so this is how you realize that you're talking for too long. Try to be short. Let's hear as many voices as we can. These are the 4 questions. We hope they make sense to you and we hope they are relevant. The floor is yours. Where are the people with the microphones? Are there? Okay. And please introduce yourself so that everybody knows who you are. Just talk it. Normally they... Wait, I have 2 microphones. I can give 1. 3.
I suggest you delete the first question. Okay. Pierce O'Donoghue, European Commission. I simply suggest that you delete the first question. We could be here all night discussing that, but I hope that most of the people in the room believe in the system, and it would be very useful if the experts focused on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th question. That's my input. Thank you.
Okay. Other views? Yes, please.
My name is Elke Bals from the Netherlands, and I want to ask you a question, because the 3rd question, how can we attract more VIPs to participate in such a multi-stakeholder process? I am trying to work out a workshop proposal for the IGF, and the deadline is tonight, and still the date and place is not yet definitely confirmed. I've heard a lot of rumors. And yeah, how can we do that? We can't, because we don't have a date yet.
Thank you. Fair point. Just normally
If I can just jump in here? No? I'll just jump in here quickly. I'm Lynn Sainamore, the IGF MAG chair. And 2 weeks ago, we announced that we had a very good offer from the French government to host IGF 2018, November 11th through 14th. It takes some time for the UN contracting process to actually complete. So it would not be appropriate to say that it is done and contracted and agreed at this point. But the words that have been agreed with the UN is that everybody's expectation should be that the IGF is held next November 11th through the 14th in Paris. And that was the expectation that people were given with respect to the call for workshop proposals. And we know it was not ideal for the first few weeks for that not to be known. So I'm sure we'll find some ways to put some additional flexibility into the review process.
So we know it's not Lynn's fault. She has been doing everything she can. Other inputs on the last 3 questions. More attractive to businesses, more VIPs, closer to decision making, yes or no? Please tell us. Mr. Hickson.
Thank you very much, Nigel Hickson, ICANN. Well, I think these are fundamental questions. These are some of the questions we addressed in that very moving closing session which you chaired along with Lynn and others at the IGF in Geneva. And we ought to have said something about the IGF in Geneva. We ought to have thanked the Swiss and thanked everyone that had an input into that. We ought to have thanked the IGF Secretariat for their brilliant work in coordinating that. And as we look forward, we need to make sure that we take that Geneva spirit in that last closing session to Paris, because clearly we have to evoke that spirit in the next IGF. And these 3 questions are absolutely fundamental. We have the opportunity in Paris, with a high-level presence of perhaps leaders, other stakeholders, to really reinforce that the IGF has to be a multi-stakeholder, that it has to include all stakeholders, that governments must find it useful to attend, that businesses must find it useful to attend, and all sorts of businesses, not just the ICT sectors, but other businesses where the internet is so vital to their future. So you have, or we have, the opportunity in Paris, and we must do something about that. And I think one of the key issues that has to be addressed, and ISOC have articulated this more than others in terms of the importance of the IGF. We have to be able to show that the IGF is relevant. We have to be able to come out with some concrete, not decisions, not recommendations in the form of a UN recommendation or an ITU recommendation or anything like that, but a consensus, a feeling that the IGF has achieved something. Going back to what we had in Net Mondiale, that the stakeholders came together and adopted principles that people bought into. This is the spirit that we must encourage in the IGF. We must select one or two topics and really work on them and come to some form of consensus, some form of agreement, not written in laws or anything like that, but the community can get behind, expressing some of the concerns that have been heard here in this wonderful conference as well. Sorry for going on.
Thank you for this very passionate, slightly more than 1 minute statement, Nigel. Next one, please, Thomas.
Hello, my name is Thomas Grupp. I'll speak for Deutsche Telekom, so I can give you a very brief industry feedback and an idea how to get more businesses here, which is very simple. Get more relevant. I mean, my experience is I've been to 5 EuroDiGs now. I see the same people talking about the same topics. What I learned really new this year is so small that I really have to consider if I come back next year. So if you want businesses, take their topics on board, take them on board, even if they maybe do not always have a civil society angle or a human rights aspect. That has been a problem in the past. If we get our topics discussed, we'll be here.
Thank you. So we'll put a new criteria on our call for issues. It has to be relevant. Thank you, Thomas. Next one, please.
Yes, thanks, Mark Carver, UK government. I've been going to IGFs pretty much from the start, and most EuroDiGs, not everyone, I have to say. So I'm from government. How to make it more attractive to governments? I think for both the regional and the global IGFs, I think the key thing is to hit on the hot and emerging topics that government policymakers are starting to engage on. They're grappling with topics. And I think actually EuroDiG has been quite successful in that respect this year with AI and blockchain. My head is buzzing with the idea of blockchain is something governments should be taking up because it enhances transparency, participation, and human rights aspects. I hadn't really thought about that. And we're looking at those topics. This is informative. So outcomes, I think, are going to be important. The prospect of outcomes to hook in these policy teams, because if the outcomes can be like ambitions to create a menu of policy options, and that might include governments don't do anything, don't regulate. That's a very useful message for us in the UK. We're very deregulatory. But a kind of the structure of the sessions can on these topics if they can have that prospective outcome of policy options, and then you can get the policymakers in and involved in those discussions. I hope that's a helpful comment. Thanks. Great EuroDiG.
Thank you, indeed.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. Next one, please.
Hi, Roberto Gaetano, chair of the Public Interest Registry board, but speaking in my own capacity, I would like to address only the last point because I think it's quite important. I think that EuroDiG is so interesting because it's a forum where people come and bring own ideas and different ideas, and you have really a discussion on new things and different opinions. If we attach the need of going into decision making, we will open a can of worms and we will destroy this model. People will be more attentive to what they say and much more decision oriented. And I think that the whole atmosphere will be different, and that will be a pity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daril Sivzivatse. I'm from Garji movement, Georgian actually. I missed yesterday, and well, I was really worried. I was looking for what was the schedule. I could not find the schedule anywhere. So I asked on the Facebook, and one of my friends who was here actually sent me the screen. So I got happy because on the first day I did not miss anything that I was interested in. When I came and when I saw the second day schedule, I was really excited because here there were all the topics that I was interested in, like blockchain and AI. So, for example, I don't think that people who don't understand how do domain name system work, they don't need to be here. So I don't think this topic had to be there as well in the schedule. So what I'm suggesting is for the next year or for you to consider is to have one hot and broad topic for one EuroDiG conference, and then design the schedule for guys who will be interested in that specific topic. Like if it were blockchain, for example, I attended 2 very interesting sessions. I would really love to hear some business people sitting here to talk about the specific experiences. You know what I mean. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Jörg Schweiger on question 4. I think the IGF nor the EuroDiG is really in a position to take decisions. Yet we are in a position to come up with tangible results, or at least with something that is written black on white. And on these results, people can act and start to implement. Furthermore, I'd like to address a question that has not been raised, and that is that do not, everybody's quiet now, do not act in a way that diversity is driving the program in its major essence, so that we may avoid critical issues and workshops just for the sake of diversity. I see that more and more. Thank you.
Thank you, that's noted. Asking about Sandra, we started a little late. Should I turn to the people on the panel to give their feedback on what we've heard? They all have some roles, or have had or will have some roles in organizing or being part of the organizing teams of IGFs. Which side? Let's, we have one more request from the floor, so please.
Should
go
I
ahead.
tell? I will use. First of all, I apologize to be later, but when I came and I was listening part of them and I read the question, I have my personal opinion, and I took this initiative for me to ask, to share with this. For example, when I read, there was some question. For example, the first question, how to manage and be attractive to government and businesses. I have an opportunity to attend it a few months ago in one of the cybersecurity conferences which held in Georgia, and there was mostly business people who was interested in this spectrum from the bank field and from other fields. And I would like to, based on my experience and from yesterday that I was attending fully and active, if we would like to encourage business people to be involved, we need to show them what and why they have to use it. For example, every company is big companies. I wouldn't like to have startup who is connected with, especially from like bank security, with the internet and using this internet services. They can have threats, and it can be dangerous. This kind of involvement and raising their experience about the digital things, it will be better, because we have in every part of the big companies, there's a technology part and something, and they can be involved, because when they have a problem, they don't interact, they are solving inside, but they can raise their voice to change something. About the level of, and about the multicultural and what's the participation. For example, what I liked very much, and I didn't have the opportunity to involve, it was the EuroDiG that happened in Georgia. And when I saw these people who was participating here, they was excited how it was beneficial for them, because they get experience, they get a new, and for example, such kind of activities, not only for the youth people who involved in a situation of the EuroDiG youth, but also for general EuroDiG, it will be nice. Yesterday there some session in other rooms where a little bit practical, but if only the people that I saw, about 500 or 300 people who was listening, but somebody was gone back. And when I observed yesterday as well, I saw that these people came to listen and went, and like you have one of the word, like talk shops, yeah? It was looking for them like talk shops, because they had not opportunity to work to inside, because it was a lot of people I know, but sometimes practical tool, which would be beneficial for them, not about general tools. And I think it all maybe make a real, because I was the one IGF that was national in Tbilisi a few months ago, last year, which as well was like this. I get experience from the contacting of person. I get for new information that really was good, and nowadays why I'm here, because of this experience. But I would like to get more, and thank you. I wish to I find my point of this everything.
Thank you. We have to stop. But thank you for the input. Let's start to my left with Michael Rotet to say a few words about his reaction to what we've heard.
Okay, better with a microphone. Well, listening to the answers and of the questions behind me, there were answers which I could easily combine. For instance, what Mark Cavell said or what Jörg Schweiger said. One is more hot topics for politicians, or diversity is driving. You can put this together in saying, well, a little bit more focus on hot topics. This would solve this stuff. I've seen many EuroDiGs, and nearly all of them, except one, and many IGFs, and it is true, some sessions seem to be debate club, some sessions seem to be the same as last year, and hot topics, and that's what I heard today from answers of these questions, I can fully subscribe to. I would even go further and say, if governments are more committed to the outcome of these multi-stakeholder meetings and take the mood of such a conference more serious, this would help as well, because when the audience gets the impression that what is discussing has some implications, that helps. One thing. Another thing is, it was always very clear the country EuroDiG goes to should specifically also support the country EuroDiG is just taking place. So that's a specific support for that country. And that's why we're traveling around. Otherwise, it would be much easier to have one place for such a conference. This is what came to my mind. I'm happy to see so many people in such a session. And I was happy hearing that there were absolutely input which is usable and which met also what I was thinking when answering the questions on my phone for me to read. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next one is Dr. Günther Gradwohl from the German Ministry of Interior, one of the persons responsible for the IGF in Berlin next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as Thomas said, my name is Günther Gradwohl. For those who do not know me, I'm working in the German Ministry of Economics, and I'm working in a team that will prepare and organize the next IGF, no, not the next, the IGF next year, 2019, that will take place in Berlin. And let me say the German government believes in the IGF. So yes, we need such a forum like this. And the last 2 or 3 days I've been here, I felt a lot of energy and motivation and young people and knowledge. And this is really important to get everybody on board if we discuss or if we decide on issues, on topics around the internet. The internet is a global infrastructure, and it's really an infrastructure that provides us with wealth and new technologies and innovation and so on. So we should keep the internet as it is, as a global and innovative and free and open infrastructure that is non-discriminatory and that is that keeps its innovatory effect on all people around the globe. So IGF is something we need. That's the reason why we've applied for that next year. And you can, or I can assure you as well that the German government is very open for every idea or measure that makes it more relevant, for sure. More relevant, and we try also to get more VIPs and more stakeholders and perhaps also citizens and everybody on board who is interested in that topic. And perhaps also the location is good for that, because I like to quote a sentence I've heard in the beginning of the IGF of Sandra Hoferichter, I guess. It was the sentence that the IGF needs a place where the multi-stakeholder view is in the DNA of its citizens. And I guess there are not many places like this, more like this than Berlin, but Paris, as we have heard now, is for sure also such a place. So I think we can look with much confidence into the future of the IGF, at least for this year and for next year. And then we should bring forward the spirit of Geneva from Paris to Berlin and then to the next session in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunther. Let's go first to Raul Echeverria, so we can have our person saving the gender balance at least partially in the panel to have the last word. So Raul, what is your reaction? Your reaction is you want a microphone. That's understandable.
Thank you, Thomas. This is a multi-stakeholder approach, so we need... we at the Internet Society have been pushing for some improvements of the IGF, and we have been very active in the last couple of months. The Internet Society is one of the strongest supporters of IGF. It has been since its inception. We are strongly committed to this, but we think that it's time to move to the next level with the IGF. We want to promote the multi-stakeholder models around the world for dealing with concrete issues. This is what we call multi-stakeholder in action. We are being successful in convincing stakeholders and partnering with the governments and other stakeholders in implementing multi-stakeholder processes for dealing with the specific things. But for that, we need to show that this model is successful, that it works. This is why we are a little worried, not scared, but that we care very much about this. And I'm very happy to see that some of the things that we have been proposing coincide 100% with the things that have been said on the mic. Producing outcomes, what is clearly, one of our colleagues clearly pointed out that it doesn't mean making decisions. It means just producing more tangible outcomes that could be more useful. I think that EuroDiG experience is very good in that sense. But this is something that we can never be enough satisfied. We always have to look for improvements. So this is good for this stage, but let's continue working on how to improve those outcomes and the way that we produce the outcomes. And the be more focused. As we have been talking before with the colleagues, it's not enough to have a session on privacy. We have to tackle specific things on that topic, on privacy. The same to all those topics. It would be ridiculous to have a session on access. That is, it worked 10 years ago, but it's not longer useful. We need to tackle specific things, be more focused. This will attract more people and other stakeholders. We need to provide more balanced opportunities for everybody to participate in all the different phases of the process, since the presentation of workshops, evaluation, but also in the meeting. So we need to ensure that everybody have the same opportunities to speak. Some of the practices that we implemented at Net Mundial in 2014 could be useful. We should analyze them, so we should not be afraid of evolving the meetings and looking for new ways of doing this. So having said that, I'm very optimistic now, and having heard your comments, I think that we have to show some signals of improvement this year. But it's not that we have to do everything this year. So we need to show signals and to continue working with our host for 2019 to continue improving the IGF. So let's continue working together, and I'm sure that we will do great things in this matter.
Thank you, Raul. Let's immediately go to Lynn for a few final words.
Thank you. I'm going to start with a couple of sort of more operational to address some of the suggestions I actually heard here today, and then I think move to some of the more meta questions I think we're all facing. The MAG this year, and I have to say we have an outstanding MAG. I've been involved with the IGF since before there was a formal IGF. We have 28 out of 55 MAG members that are brand new, and another 18 that are serving just their second year. That's 80% sort of new ideas and new thoughts, and they're really committed to making a difference and moving forward. So I'm very encouraged by that. We put an extra step in this year called the Call for Issues, which actually came from some of the national and regional IGF processes. And we want to use that to actually shape the agenda, so we make sure that we actually have an agenda that speaks to all the stakeholders. So we will look at the issues that came in by stakeholder group, look at the workshop proposals we've seen, and then use that to actually shape the overall agenda of the IGF. We are working really hard to build a more cohesive agenda, more focused, fewer tracks, fewer redundancy, hopefully feeding on one from the other, and we've actually changed some of our review processes within the MAG to ensure that we have a consistent review by themes, which should help build a much tighter set of workshops. We have a series of working groups that are in place. Two of them are three, I suppose, are really important. There's one on communications and outreach, which of course is important. There's a multi-year strategic work program, which wants to try and identify those few topics that are worthy of and certain to be of interest of, and build a longer-term program around those, which will allow us to do greater outreach. A part of that effort also is looking at what sort of recommendations or outputs we can pull out. And frankly, it's maybe pushing a little bit on the Tunis agenda, but I actually think there's a lot of room to advance what we do from, which is pretty much discussion and debate today. And a recommendation doesn't have to be a policy recommendation. It can be advisory. It could be reframing a particular broad, complex topic and suggesting maybe that a piece of this topic should be addressed through another forum or another process. A whole host of things we're looking at in that space, including the possibility of actually using some of the tools that exist today to get sort of a broad set of opinions and thoughts from across the community. There's a lot more as well. There's also one which is looking at all the improvements that have been suggested for the IGF, starting with every one of the annual meetings has a 3-hour stock-taking session on the last day. So there's a lot of substantive input that comes from that process. We had a UN DESA retreat 2 years ago. We had the CSTD working group on IGF improvements. All that work is being cataloged, and in fact, it is already cataloged and is grouped, and we're now trying to figure out where it should be sort of apportioned, if you will, to advance it. All of the MAG working groups are open, so if anybody wants to participate, please participate. If you want to join the mailing list so you can just keep track quietly of what's happening, that's very, very welcome as well. Sandra did open the meeting as well with another comment that said the IGF in its 13 years really a teenager, and maybe there's a little bit of sort of searching for identity. When I started to get involved in the internet and internet governance, it was because I thought the internet could make a tremendous difference in people's lives. And I think that's why most people came to the internet. It's also why we continue to stay engaged in internet governance discussions. So I think, you know, if we try and break that down, one of the meta questions I think we're facing is, how do we actually work to advance those issues that are most critical? It's not just about debate and discussion and education. That's extremely valuable, and frankly, it's the first step in advancing almost anything. But how do we actually continue these discussions and kind of organize or capture or shape them through all of our processes differently so that they do start to produce something that is more actionable? Again, you know, I don't come to these meetings just to learn. I come to these meetings because I really want to make a difference. I want to help advance the internet in critical ways, and I know that's what most people I talk to want to do. So I think we need to find a way to push ourselves a little bit more and see how we can move from the very essential components of debate and discussion and learning and openness to really try and figure out how we get a lot more useful outputs and a lot more outputs out of the wealth of knowledge that comes out of every one of the processes, whether it's the national, regional IGF initiatives, the IGF, or all the intersessional activities we're working on as well. So, you know, I hope that the MAG, I can't speak for the MAG at this point, we are a bottom-up process, but I hope the MAG actually looks at the workshop proposals that are coming in really through the lens of, are we doing all we can as a MAG to support advancing the cross-cutting international public policy issues, which is what the IGF was first established to do, of course, while supporting multi-stakeholder, open, bottom-up consensus processes. And I think maybe I'll just close with, again, I think a lot of these debates really do move from, is it about a talk shop or is it about actions? And I don't think those two are, I'm tired, so what's the word? I don't think those two are contradictory, right? I think we can both support the debate and discussion and the openness and the education while at the same time really working to advance issues. And my final comment is, we really need to hear from the community. It's extremely important. I've been doing a lot of listening and talking, as I hope I always do. I'm happy to give my email address out or put it anywhere that would help. You also have MAG members in the room here. You have your national and regional IGF initiatives. Please feed any of your suggestions or inputs up through any of these processes. And if you want to make it easy, my email address is lynn@internet-matters.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Looking at the time, I won't add anything but saying that this is, of course, not a new discussion and will not stop today, so we'll be having that dialogue continue in various forms. And this is the end of this panel, and I thank everybody that contributed. And now I would like to hand over to Sandra for the end of it.
Thank you very much. I would actually like you to be seated for a moment because I want to give some attention to one outcome of this EuroDiG of the last 2 days, and these are the use messages. And I would like to invite Katie, Deborah, and Joao to read them out. They were after 2 days of, please come to the stage, after 2 days of EuroDiG that took place on Sunday and on a Monday, and after 2 days of EuroDiG, so actually you had 4 days, you have prepared your messages as well, and we are very much interested in reading them, and I hope these are not many pages, what I see. So who is going to start?
We prove that we have many things to say, but we try to be short. Anyway, our group decided to divide these messages by topics as follows. So, for accessibility, ensuring equity of participation of young people from different backgrounds, especially underprivileged groups, such as, but not limited to, women, minorities, and LGBTQI+, through funding mechanisms by governments, private companies, and international organizations. Increasing visibility of the possibilities to participate in internet governance activities by improving accessibility to quality and attractive information, for example, through edutainment, and by building the capacity of participants. Ensuring a systematic approach for youth participation in statutory structures of the internet governance stakeholders, for example, through youth representation in decision-making bodies.
Now, on digital literacy, no one should tolerate misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, nor give ground to those who create and share it. More resources should be allocated to promote critical thinking on information disorder. Education is vital for increasing digital literacy so that people can make informed decisions online in order to get the most out of their time on the internet and stay safe. This includes measures such as identifying scams, critical thinking, etiquette, and knowing your rights and responsibilities as a digital citizen.
An internet that works for everybody. The internet will be even more indispensable in everyone's life in the future. Everybody should have the right to shape the future of the internet, and we need to ensure that it remains a global social resource that is open and benefits humanity. In order to achieve this, the development of internet should be pursued in an inclusive, bottom-up and multi-stakeholder process. It needs to be ensured that internet develops in an ethical way so that everybody is supported in making balanced and healthy use of it. The internet must develop in a way that respects the environment and remains sustainable.
And now on regulation of internet, data privacy, and legal protection against cybercrime. Regulation of internet involves rules which govern the internet and should be enforced by governments and/or intermediaries, while also constituting a mechanism which empowers and protects the rights of end users. Data privacy is of paramount importance to ensure that everyone has the right to decide how their own content is being employed. These rights should be reasonably enforceable. Legal protection against cybercrime should be comprehensive. All crimes committed online should be dealt with the same seriousness as those committed offline. Cybercrime should be dealt with tools which pertain to the online world.
And for digital inclusion, in order to foster digital inclusion, computerware as well as content and services should be usable and accessible by design on a non-discriminatory basis. Preventive and reactive measures are necessary to better protect vulnerable groups, such as, but not limited to, children, women, minorities, and LGBTQI+ groups. Users should be more proactive about calling out hate speech online, and websites need to have more robust ways to tackle discriminatory and dehumanizing behavior.
We commit to continuing the dialogue and to make it central point of discussion in the next European dialogue on internet governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, especially the last comment, the commitment, because this is the future. So those messages will go in this leaflet we are used to produce after EuroDiG. They will be marked as the youth messages from their days, and if you are interested, before the messages from Tbilisi will be printed, you can still get some messages from Tallinn. They are also very interesting, and they are still here somewhere around in the venue. Actually, please take them. We don't want to take them home. Okay, and with this, I think we can thank you, the distinguished panel from the last session. I just wanted to give due attention to the youth participants because I have the experience and we will see how that works. If they stand up, please stay seated. So just you stand up now.